At the same time, it's almost like a very specific mindset that not a lot of people actually have. This mindset of continuous growth. Do you have any, let's say, strategies to develop that mindset?
I think the the elucidation of the idea is the key thing, right? Uh, you can approach anything. You could understand from your life experience that growth is a continuous process, right? Growth is a continuous process. We are aging. We age each day. We don't suddenly, although in some cases the jump happens, like when you may grow 5 inches over the summer, right? Like something like that. But mainly you're growing each and every day. And it's a slow and sometimes invisible process, but it ends up happening, right? We see it all around us. The entire world reflects this concept of slow but steady growth, which is at some point accelerated or punctuated by a sudden giant leap forward. And for me, those leaps are important. I mean, one day I can't beat my friend at chess. I keep doing the work. He's still crushing me. And then one day I wake up and he has no chance. Right? Like it wasn't, I got incrementally closer. I just couldn't beat him. And then now he just has no chance. And that's happened to me enough times for me to understand that growth process, that growth is basically the plateau for a while, doing all the work you can. And then suddenly you jump and you're at another level. I'm sure you two have gone through the same thing at different points as well. Like this idea of explosive growth, but only after you've been stuck maybe at a level for some time, or maybe just improving only slightly. But the world you just look at outside and you see everything in the world grows that same way.
Fabi, can you remember
I,
any of those episodes where you experienced that?
well, I was thinking about it, yeah, from personal experience, and I think that this is probably something that many people can relate to, is that a lot of improvement and self-belief are tied together. So you mentioned like you're losing to your friend all the time, and then suddenly you beat your friend the one time, and now it seems easy. And now it's very competitive where you're starting to beat your friend all the time. And I think part of it is that you improve to the point where you're capable of beating your friend. And then once you get that first taste of it, then you have the self-belief that it can happen in the future. And that in itself also makes you stronger. So yeah, I think that like the psychology and the improvement, like they really come together. And it's probably a mistake to think that psychology doesn't play a part at all in improvement, which I'm sure most people understand that, especially if they're going through this process and let's say they have a big tournament victory and then suddenly it makes them stronger for the next one. They have this maybe organic understanding that belief and confidence also play a huge role in that. And I can also speak from experience that, and I'm sure we all can, that yeah, once you have a big success, it kind of propels you forward in the future and makes you realize, oh, now I can actually do this. I can beat an 1800, or I can beat a grandmaster, or whatever it is, and that kind of helps you improve in the future as well.
Yeah, and it's always the case when you've been growing and growing and then you hit that plateau. And, that can be disheartening at times. If you stay stuck for like 1-2 years. I remember when I went from 2200 to almost 2400 in one month, one rating list basically. And then I got stuck there for like 2 years. And actually I went back to 2270 and I was like, what's happening, right? Why am I not making any improvements? And then suddenly I got back to 2400. And then I had, in the span of a couple of months, I had this huge success at the World Youth Championship. And then immediately I went and did my GM norms. And I had no idea that I have it in me. I was at 2270, just 6 months before. I was like, what's happening? Was that just a fluke? Was my first 2400 rise just a fluke? And you have all these questions and whatnot, but you just have to keep on drilling and keep on adding skills to your arsenal, I guess.
Yeah, I think that jump is amazing. I went through a growth period from 1800 to 2400 in a 3-year time span. And it was, it was hard to even understand. Like I was just boom, 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 just jump. And then when I got to 2400, like I hit a brick wall. You think you're going to be linear growth like this forever, and reality kicks in, and it's just not the case. And the only thing you can do is go back to doing the work. And I just that this was my level, and I just kept working at it. And you get stuck on the plateau. There's a great book called Mastery by George Leonard, one of my favorite books that I read along the process, and remains one of my favorite books now. And he was an Aikido guy, but he understood this process of being stuck at the plateau and people wanting to somehow hack growth. We hear that all the time in society. You're gonna hack growth. We're gonna do something really fast. Whenever I hear that, I'm like, don't waste your time. Like that's just a complete waste, because growth is not that it's not hackable, so to speak, but really the hack is put in the work, fool. Like just keep doing what is known to be effective, and sooner or later everything will come together in your mind and then in your performance. And that just takes time. And also, by the way, knowledge is only part of the battle, right? You talked about psychology, Fabi. Knowledge is great. You could know a lot, but when you're sitting across the board and your opponent is staring at you, and you know this is for all the marbles, and the tension builds, and you're in the fifth hour, and your hand starts to shake, and your stomach starts to growl because you're hungry, and you know that this is it. Congratulations that you have all that knowledge. How are you performing with that knowledge? And that has to come together too in competition. And a lot of people get derailed right at that point because they don't have the nervous system to be able to tolerate the kind of tension you need as a grandmaster or as a warrior, professional warrior, when you're fighting another professional warrior. So all that has to combine. There's no substitute for experience and for being just in the fire.
Yeah, I think maybe this is a bit controversial, but I think that it's I fully agree that knowledge is not the biggest thing, and I would even say not really an important thing. Like when I think of, let's say, the vast majority of players, what might be holding them back, it's not that they don't know enough theory, certainly not even close. And it's not even that they haven't studied enough middle games and they don't know the plan, although that's very useful to have like good pattern recognition. And I've seen a lot of the patterns and being able to implement that kind of not subconsciously, but on a more intuitive level. That's important, but it's really like, I would say, a very minor part. And the work is not just to like improve your intuition, but it's also, I think, to kind of turn your brain on constantly. So it's always thinking about chess. And once you have that process where your brain is just always thinking, like, let's say I tell you a series of moves in the opening, and then you just start to like picture the position in your head, and you're calculating the position that I just told you. That would be an example, I would say, of like you're turned on in terms of you're activated, or however you want to say it, that your mind is kind of tuned to thinking about chess. And that's what will help someone most during a game. So the work, of course, it's very important for knowledge, for pattern recognition, for all that, but it's more just to get you in the mode, to be calculating, to be thinking about chess, to be playing. And I think that's where like rust comes in. It's not because you don't know the latest like theory developments. It's because you haven't thought about chess for a long time. And that's when someone says they're rusty, that's probably what they're talking about. Not that, I haven't checked my openings and I feel like I'm on the back foot in the opening. That's probably not going to be the biggest problem for most people. So yeah, knowledge it plays a part, but it's really not the biggest part. And just like the work that you put in, just the fact that you're working, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be on something useful necessarily. Just the fact that you're working on chess is the important part, I think, at least.
I love that thought that it doesn't even have to be something useful. I remember I used to study with my buddy Josh Waitzkin, and we'd get to some position that was fascinating to me. Like, this position is so interesting, and it had nothing to do with the theory we would play. We just got sidetracked. I was like, this position is interesting. Let's look at it. And he's like, yo, this is not practical at all. We're never going to see this position. I said, yeah, but this position is so much fun and it's so intriguing. Let's just see what the truth is. And he would be pissed off. Like, okay, fine, whatever. And we'd be analyzing it. And again, no utility, right? No useful value at all as far as a theoretical possibility that might happen in a game. And it's only recently that he said, I was visiting with him, and he said, I got to apologize for something, which I had completely forgotten. He said, you used to force us to look at these useless positions, and I used to push back. But recently, I realized that this is an important part of the learning process. And so, yeah, you were right. I was like, wow. I mean, I hadn't thought about it in a long time, but you just said it right there. Like, it's just about your brain being engaged, looking at chess, seeing how things function, even fantasy chess in that way, right? Like just crazy positions. As long as you are hungry and you're curious, maybe curiosity is the best word, then all that stuff will be beneficial in some way. You're filing something away in your mind about some kind of operation, and it may not work in the opening you're looking at, but there'll be somewhere, somehow, that it will manifest itself in some games of yours in the future.
And I feel this is the aspect of play, right? In the learning process. You have to play, you have to get engaged. It just simply activates a certain part of your brain, because otherwise, if you don't engage in this play mode, let's say, whenever you're learning, maybe on occasion, maybe sometimes you have to be really serious about it, you have to drill down on certain topics, but you definitely need to find time for play as well. And I feel like this is part of the reason why sometimes people just simply don't improve. They get stuck, and then they reach burnout, and that's a problem, right? If you engage in play, and if you find the right person, the right people, the right community to do that with, I feel that can definitely help you with the improvement process.
I mean, play is so critical. Like, think about, how do you respond to pressure, right? How do you respond to the circumstances like I talked about? We all have been there. I don't mean to bring this up, Fabi, but you just had a recent experience in a hugely important game where you were winning, and a win would have given you a tiebreak possibility. And it's not like the way you should have won that game is stuff you don't know, right? It's like, that stuff. Nobody tells you should have, just taken the pawn on H2. That's not about what you know and knowledge and somebody's teaching you anything. It's about how you responded under pressure, in a critical situation, in a critical moment, in a game, and in your life. And without going through that experience, nobody really knows what that feels like. I don't know what that feels like at all, to play at that level of importance in a game, and what happens to your brain in that moment, the kind of clarity that you have. And that's something that obviously was painful for you, but it's something that you have to explore within yourself to understand what happened and how you can improve from it the next time, which will happen. You will have other opportunities as the level you are when it happens again, right? And that only happens when you actually are in the cauldron, right? You're in the fire. That pot's boiling, and only few people will ever understand how hot that pot, what it feels like to be in that boiling pot, and then to feel it inside yourself so you can be successful. Really assess that so you can be successful next time.
Yeah, I think if you look at the mistakes that you see between strong players on, let's say, at the grandmaster level and up, like very, very strong players, the mistakes that people make are not mistakes that they don't understand, are mistakes. Like, if you show them after the fact, or if you show them this as something that someone else did, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's an obvious mistake. In the vast majority of cases, of course, there are some cases where you make a mistake that is beyond comprehension. But they're very rare. They're exceedingly rare. If you look at the candidates, which is the highest level, the best players in the world, the mistakes that they make, I include myself and also the other players, are almost always mistakes that even players of a much lesser caliber would have ease understanding if you showed them these moves are being made. Of course, these are mistakes. Like, if you look at Pragnanta's game against Nepomniachtchi, how he missed a very big winning opportunity if you look at my game that I lost to Hikaru, not to mention the last game against Jan, but also how I lost to Hikaru, making mistakes that, of course, I understand after the fact that they're mistakes. I don't understand during the game, but it's not because it's out of my capability to understand. Is that, as you mentioned, you're in the fire. You're playing in real time. You're making decisions in real time. It's not with the benefit of hindsight. It's not with the benefit of being able to dissect every decision, and also without knowing how much time you can expend on every decision. And so that's why chess is like 99% a practical game. It's not about your theoretical knowledge. You can take the most knowledgeable people on chess. They're going to be the guys who've been playing chess the longest, right? It's going to be, let's say, a guy like a 90-year-old grandmaster can't play anymore, absolutely, but knows everything you could possibly want to know about the game, and but it's really all about the practical strength. It's again not so much about knowledge. Like, let's say my knowledge has increased so much in the last 10 years in terms of chess. Like, I know so much more than 10 years ago. My rating is more or less around the same. My world ranking is pretty much around the same if you go back 10 years. So why am I not massively stronger? Well, it's because I got stronger in some ways. I got more knowledge, but I also got weaker in some ways. There's like a trade-off. And some, if I compare myself to like when I was 18, definitely I had some more practical skills when I was 18 than now. And if we look at the young guys who are competing, and you wonder like why are they competing with the best players, the kind of old guard, the best players of the previous 10 years, it's because yeah, they might lack some knowledge and experience, but they have these practical skills and this determination and all those other things. So it's not really so much about knowledge. It's about a huge amount of factors.